Hey Rose, it's Wednesday, a perfect day to talk about arguing. Arguing usually has a negative connotation. People are like, oh, I don't like to argue, but I think we should make the immediate distinction between arguing and fighting. Fighting is when argument breaks down and collapses. It has more to do with emotion and the more animal-like elements of humans. Arguing, on the other hand, is one of the greatest aspects of humanity. The ability to share ideas and reach progress through collaboration is something that only humans can do, and it's why we're so different than all other animals. It's how you're watching this video right now on the internet. Crocodiles don't have YouTube or the internet because they can't argue. But here's the deal, a lot of people don't know how to argue, and that can keep them from having their opinions heard and represented. It can even cause you to be taken advantage of. But that can all be simply fixed with one little trick, one rule that will drastically strengthen your ability to argue your ideas. That trick is just know your point and stick to it. This might sound a little elementary, but it's one of the largest mistakes that I see people making when discussing or arguing ideas. When arguing, there should be one specific point while you're discussing at a time. What people tend to do if they feel their position is weakening or they're losing an argument is to slightly change the point to something related to the original point, but not quite the same. This works because our brains are amazingly good at recognizing patterns, and so the point can slightly shift to something related and the other person probably won't even notice. Let's take a look at an example. Say two people are arguing about something kind of heavy. Let's say like same-sex marriage rights. And one of the people wants to argue the point of equality of rights. So they might say, I think same-sex couples should be able to marry because as citizens of our country, they need to be given the same rights as everyone else. To which the other person might respond, but my religion doesn't agree with same-sex marriage, and since marriage is a religious institution, they shouldn't be allowed to marry. Okay, here's what just happened. The point got shifted from talking about equal rights to talking about the impact of same-sex marriages on religious institutions, which is not at all the same point, merely related points. Mildly related points. So let's see how our very handsome arguers play this one out. That's not the same point at all. I'm talking about equality of rights. If you think about it, we let serial killers get married in prison. Why would we not let regular adult citizens get married? You're right, even though I personally might not be comfortable with same-sex marriages, and maybe my religion keeps me from agreeing with it, same-sex couples are adults and citizens and need to be given the same rights as everyone else. Now that we have settled that point, let's talk about same-sex marriage in regards to religion. Don't get me wrong, those related topics are perfectly fine to discuss. In fact, they definitely should be discussed and argued, but if you go at your points one at a time, you'll find that your arguments become much more efficient, and you'll probably find that your voice has more power than it did before. Because we have this problem with arguing, there are certain people who have learned to take advantage of this. Politicians. Oh my. Excuse me. Very, very often when a politician, or anyone really for that matter, is trying to avoid answering a question or a point, they will slightly shift the point to something else, something more in their favor. Interviewers will usually let this happen to keep the interview moving along. Although what they should do is say, no, that wasn't the question, go back and answer the question. Come on, journalists, you got a job to do. Keep our politicians on their toes. This is how deniers of basically any topic can sidestep all logic and rational debate. You've probably heard climate change deniers before change the point from the climate is changing to the climate has always been changing. That is not at all the same point. Stay on track. So when it comes down to it, before you can argue with someone, you actually need to agree on one thing with them first. What exactly it is you're arguing about. If you're upfront and clear about your point from the beginning of an argument, your argument will be much more efficient and help to avoid frustration. And as many of us know, definitely me, when an argument becomes frustrating is its highest chance of collapsing into a fight. And that does not help progress at all. So get out there, stay on point, and change the world with your opinions. And Rose, we will see you on Friday.